Hi guys, this is Miriam. Today's gonna be a very special video for me. I am gonna teach you how to make a pattern. Now, I was gonna say this is the easy way of making a pattern or pattern for dummies, but there is no easy way. When you make things right, you can make things like this. I made this for my niece this Halloween. Today, or at least this video, is going to concentrate on making the front of a sweater. I usually would take a sweater that I like and we're going to copy it. You can use this method to copy anything, any item you have at your home. You're going to need some paper and some scissors. I do recommend you get lightweight paper that's I'm going to say pretty big and wide. So you can cut to size or actually bigger than what you're going to copy. So you see I have this paper. I am lucky enough to have excess paper from work. They kind of just recycle this so I can bring it home and use it for projects. So if you want to tape up some papers you have at home to make enough squarage for the pattern you need, I think that works as well. And you just need regular old scissors and a pencil. And probably a different color pen for later. I'll show you why. You're going to put the paper on top of what you're going to copy and start feeling around and tracing where the seams are, where they sew it together. Just really mark it around those things. You have to feel it with your fingers, right in there. You don't have to be perfect. You're going to come back later and make sure that all the measurements are correct. I like to do this because sometimes you don't have the tools to make exact perfect curves, or just making curves is hard sometimes with a straight ruler, sorry. So going around and feeling the seams really helps. Next, you're going to measure your garment. Now, there are very key points you have to measure. Across the shoulder, it's one of the most important parts because you might make sure that it fits the person across their shoulders. You take your measuring tape. Oh, you are going to need a measuring tape. You're going to measure the center front, right where it starts, at the edge to the bottom edge. You see, I put the 0 right where it starts. And I measured to that seam of you see how it has a little band at the bottom? I didn't measure the band. I write this measurement down. I go to the armhole and I do the same thing. It's very important to make these specific measurements and take them down and measure them, put them down in a piece of paper because you're going to need them. These are all the basics. You can do so many more. You can make across the front, at the waist if you have something that's tapered in. We're going to measure the length of the garment. Now, this can change because maybe you're trying to make something longer than what you already have or shorter. You want to make a crop. So, it's okay. Just do what you can, and everything can always be changed or revised later. And that's the beauty of it. You're creating things. Exciting, right? Make sure you have all your measurements down, very clear. And the last one is probably going to be a little tricky, but hopefully you'll get it. You can pause it and try again and again. This is not the last one, but this is the neck width. Gotta make sure that your head goes over this sweater. Very important to note that and also very important to understand if you're going to be cutting and sewing in the same fabrication. You gotta think about that. This is the last measurement, and this is the front neck drop, as we call it. So you put the ruler right across, and with the measuring tape you just couldn't put it perpendicular, and that would be your front neck drop. I'm sorry I kind of went fast on that, but you can always pause it and just take a look. Next, you're gonna take that paper you traced, and you're just gonna make everything more smooth. You're gonna take your ruler and make sure that that center front is very straight. This is very important because this will be your base. Center front has to be a straight line, because wherever you go from here, it goes straight from the center front. I put my measurements in front of me so I can look at them while I plot out the measurements into the paper. And here I am measuring the neck width. I try to make my ruler edge be straight or perpendicular to that center front edge. I go around and I do the same thing at the bottom, perpendicular to the center front, and measure the bottom width. Now, I don't think I recorded myself measuring the bottom width. Make sure you do that. Don't make my mistake. Widths and lengths are important, if you're wondering. How long and how wide you want this to be. That's very important for what you're doing. We're basically going around and plotting all these measurements down. Always making sure that the ruler is perpendicular to that center front straight line. Yes, I have a little helper. She says she wants to watch the video. You can watch it now. So here I am, still making straight lines from the center front line, perpendicular to the center front line, and plotting my measurements. Plotting that across the shoulder, the chest. I'm going to show you a better view. But here are my lines. Do you see my lines? They go perpendicular from the straight line, and I measure them and label them. I label them with measurements, but if it works for you, you can label them with, what they're for. The neck width, the chest, armhole. After this, we are going to go in and make sure that those curved lines look very nice, and the outer edges are nice and straight or curved, whatever your style is. This can be used for any garment, for anything, for a pillowcase, for an outfit for your dog, literally anything. So you see, I take the side seam that we call and made that straight with my ruler. Next, I'm gonna do the shoulder. And I know that I had gone in originally with what I thought it felt underneath my fingers. But right now, because I want to be more accurate, I'm gonna follow my measurements. So even though it's not in the same spot as where I had made those original lines, I'm gonna kind of just use them as a guide, but really go into what I had plotted. Measurements are more important. And yes, my child is wearing lipstick. And don't worry, what I'm gonna give her, she's not really putting it on. I kind of tricked her. Sorry, it just makes me laugh to look at this. So next we're going to make sure that we're plotting all the lines and everything looks nice and straight. But then you need to add what's called seam allowance, because everything is gonna sew up, right? So you need an edge where you're gonna cut it. Here I am measuring my daughter. If you have the person that you're doing this for, it is a nice thing to do and measure them. Like I said, if you wanted to make a crop instead of whatever you have, you're gonna measure how much shorter it would be. Sometimes we think it would look nice a certain length, but measuring an actual person definitely gives you better results. So I recommend doing that for sure. I'm folding my line in the middle because we're gonna make everything symmetrical. I'm not gonna do this twice, guys. Fold it in the middle. You can always do this pattern just as a half pattern, and when you cut it or whoever cuts it will just fold the fabric. That's usually the case with doing things at home. In the industry, we don't do that. We don't fold our fabrics to cut. At least some don't. I think most don't. So you see, I folded it nice and straight. Make sure my paper's so flat.